Hey there, fellow wanderers. As the evening shadows stretch out over the sprawling landscape of the Old West, you find yourself ambling along dusty trails beneath a vast, star-studded sky. The dry desert air carries a crisp chill, the kind that teases goosebumps along your arms as you pull your coat a little tighter. Can you hear it? The haunting cry of a lone coyote in the distance, echoing across the plains like a symphony of solitude. It's a world steeped in myths and legends, where tales of right and wrong are spun from the same tough cloth, echoing stories as tenacious as the piney scent of sagebrush, mixed with smoke from a nearby campfire. This is not a fairy tale. No soft fades or tidy endings here instead. The tale of Lawmen in the untamed West wavers and meanders like a rattlesnake path across rocky terrain. So before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. As you settle in, picture yourself traversing these dusty trails, eyes watching for the distant flicker of a campfire that signifies civilization or at least company. You imagine the story unfolding from here will be a serious matter, yet there's no denying the curious allure of the Wild West as its legends bleed from the pages of history into the kaleidoscope of imagination. An era painted with brusque strokes of sepia and shadow, where grit meets grace and, sometimes, a gentle laugh. Throughout this journey, you'll meet those affable icons of authority, the Western sheriffs. Perhaps never before in history have lawmen been so enshrined in myth, yet sketched in such human hues, flaws, foibles, and all. Was it toughness or humor that carried them through? Maybe both, maybe neither, but these characters were certainly colorful, their tales a compelling blend of gallantry and guffaws. You wander into the sphere where each sheriff wore his own hat. Literally and metaphorically, the broad brim might give him shade, but it couldn't always hide the crinkle of a smirk or the determined squint of eyes hardened by the sun and circumstance. It's a riveting thought. Did the sun at high noon glean off a stalwart sheriff's badge as much as from the mirage reflections off swords during medieval duels? Each era with its defenders, each with its own sense of justice. The legends of these lamento be tough, cunning, or humorous-tiptoe, along the tightrope of truth and fancy. Imagine, if you will, a town square. Dusty streets lay baking in the sun, wooden boardwalks creak with every step, and somewhere in the distance, a player piano plinks its tinny tune. Surely, the presence of a sheriff in this tableau is both an assurance and an amble into uncertain adventure. For if the stories of the Old West endure, they do so not just through tales of gunfights and gallows, but sprinkled too with the dust of day-to-day life, dotted with laughter and levity. As you drift deeper into this rich, storied landscape, allow yourself to wonder, what compelled these men to pin on their badges and stride into the unknown? Some say it was the rough allure of a new frontier, where the only law was be quick or be dead. Others might argue for a sense of duty, a drive to bring order to lawlessness, a scholarly debate for you to ponder as you rest your head for the night. Historians still argue whether the archetype of the Western sheriff sprung purely from necessity, or if it was the romantic notion of bravado and bravura that held the real sway. One thing's for sure, though. Whether sprinting from saloon to saloon or riding their trusted steeds through parched landscapes, these mean and occasionally women left a peculiar mark on the fabric of time, their stories sewn into the quilts of both history and culture. For now, you hear only the soft crunch of gravel under your imagined cowboy boots and feel the cool air settle around you, a soft blanket of evening calm. The stories ahead promise a blend of rugged realism and light-hearted hilarity, carried along with the pensive presence of tumbleweeds rolling in the night breeze. And as you nestle into your own imagined saddle under this midnight sky, you'll find a companionable rhythm, a lullaby of legends to ease you into the comfort of sleep and dreams. Grab onto the reins. Our nocturnal voyage through tales of tough and funny lawmen has just begun. As you continue meandering through the open plains, imagine the enticing call of adventure that beckoned so many to the Wild West. The raw, unrefined spirit of America's frontier was a siren song for those seeking more than the confines of civilization allowed. For some, that call meant trading everything in search of precious metals. For others, it was land they sought a place to put down roots. But a select few heard another kind of call, the calling to become a lawman, a sheriff, in these untamed lands. At this moment, you find yourself standing outside a humble frontier town, the air thick with dust and opportunity. The sun, heavy and golden, sits low on the horizon. Its warmth bathes the town in a compelling glow that promises more than just long shadow-sit whispers of individualism, of the chance to be someone meaningful, and of lives led with purpose and grit. But becoming a sheriff was no easy path. Here you are, feeling the history beneath your feet. Imagine what it took to be a sheriff during these times. One had to be as rugged as the terrain, with a keen sense for reading people and landscapes alike. The small towns dotted throughout the West served as hives of bustling activity saloons, general stores, blacksmith shops, each with its own rhythms and sometimes its own chaos. Amid these, the sheriff stood a figure of authority in a world that often flirted with anarchy. On the one hand, the life of a sheriff called for toughness. You can almost hear the clinking of spurs, the heavy thud of boots on the wooden boardwalk as the sheriff made his way down the main street, keeping a constant vigil. It was a role demanding not just physical resilience, but mental fortitude as well. Many lawmen found themselves faced with challenges that tested the limits of their patience, wisdom, and moral compass. The law was a loose collection of local regulations, sometimes making acts rather formidable. After all, in a place where courts were miles away and civilization was barely holding its breath, who maintained the peace? Yet, there was a quirky side to their duty, too. Imagine the sheriff waking up to the dawn chorus with roosters, maybe, but more often with the clamor of a lively town coming back to life. It's an image that feels unusually quaint and somewhat amusing when juxtaposed with the dangers that also lurked in these small worlds. In truth, not every sheriff was a thundering presence. Many maneuvered through these challenges with a wry sense of humor and an ability to navigate the quirky vernacular of settlements that could change as unpredictably as a dust storm. You think of that sheriff entering a crowded saloon, part enforcer, part entertainer, reminding you more of a master of ceremonies at a chaotic comedy review. And yes, there's something almost vaudevillian about a sheriff casting a winking eye over a raucous crowd, calling forth both laughter and order with equal vigor. One of the most fascinating debates, even now, is what truly drove individuals to become sheriffs. Was it the promise of power, a need to assert control in a world resisting order, or mere survival instincts in a context of Cockney mayhem? Historians continue to weigh these questions, each with their own interpretations grounded in tales and testimonies. Imagine the dreams and fears coursing through these fledgling lawmen. On their shoulders lay the burden of carrying out jobs demanding more than mere gunmanship. They required diplomacy, rapport, and a rather smooth way with folks. Picture a sheriff sat atop his horse under the blazing sun, fingers rolling along the handle of his revolver, all the while weighing jokes with judgments, the harder edge softened by the unexpected charm of humor woven into everyday policing. But that's the intrigue and allure of the Wild West and its badge-wielding inhabitants. It was as much about survival as it was about courage, laced with a twine of humor strong enough to wield a smile from grim circumstances. Underneath every hat rode potential writ into the broad sky overhead, sewn into each risk and reward, as sheriffs shaped Townsend towns shaped sheriffs in return. As you draw your metaphorical hat down to shield your eyes from the fading sunlight, hear once more the murmurings of these vast expanses and the quiet undertone of history weaving its intricate stories. Just think, each step, Each decision and every moment left an indelible mark, contributing to a tapestry that's as complex as it is beguiling, with those bold enough to wear the sheriff's badge at its heart. Through these whispers of an era gone past, continue your journey into their lives, their choices, and their a journey that is only just beginning. As dusk pulls its soft blanket over the landscape, you lull deeper into the soothing comfort of history's embrace. From the bustling beginnings of your virtual frontier town, imagine now the curious evolution of the sheriff's badge, a simple yet powerful artifact that symbolized authority in a lawless land. You tread quietly through the dim and dusty confines of the sheriff's office, where the scent of old leather, gunpowder, and worn paper mingles with that persistent whiff of old coffee left in a chipped enamel mug. On the wooden desk lies a badge, glinting with a dull shine, much like the eyes of those who sought to uphold the law while curbing the chaos. The badge, worn over time, scratched by countless adventures and calamities at the complex role it represented. In the early days, law enforcement was an ad hoc affair, a mismatch of duties dictated by necessity rather than policy, with each sheriff writing and sometimes rewriting the rule book while facing both the ridiculous and the dangerous in equal measure. But why were these badges bestowed? The need for lawmen, you ponder, stemmed from more than just the love of order. As towns sprouted like mirages along burgeoning railways and trails, the sheer diversity and dynamism of settlers demanded a semblance of structure. In this cauldron of activity, sheriffs became more than their titlesa fusion of enforcers, adjudicators, and sometimes, quite unintentionally, counselors or confidantes. Consider how a sheriff navigated jurisdiction, regarding not just the black and white of law but the many shades between. It was a juggling act of maintaining peace while avoiding absurdity. A mix of inherent pragmatism and a touch of cleverness bundled in that badge, constant reminders of the merit and madness of their position. Jurisprudence played out in real time, often as unpredictable as the wind whistling through a canyon. In those early days, a policy could be cobbled together over a heated poker game at the saloon, or forged anew when disdain ushered in another day of disorder. Those policies, or lack thereof, laid the groundwork for what you now know as law. But back then, it was simply about survival. And make no mistake, some situations stretched the frontier's peculiar version of decorum to its thinnest, like the clever sheriff who once decided to placate a heated dispute between feuding farmers by staging a pie-eating contesta solution, unthinkably absurd but surprisingly effective. However, not every scenario called for levity. Sheriffs balanced a delicate ecosystem where law and order could tip into tyranny with the simplest of breezes. Out in the expanses where justice was often dispensed at the end of a gun barrel or blunt word, keeping power from corrupting entirely required more than just a keen aim. It called for discernment as much as decisiveness. Historians, those intellectual detectives of forgotten lore, still argue the extent these early lawmen understood their own impact. Did they see themselves as innovators, creating frameworks still pertinent to the modern judiciary, or did they merely make do with what they had to address the chaos of their world? These debates linger like the dust motes swirling in blades of late afternoon sunlight spilling through curtained windows. It was not merely their physical territory, but the moral expanse they navigated, which attests to their effectiveness and ingenuity. Imagine again that badgiest star, a shield, or perhaps both carried with pride, emblematic of not just authority but the unconventional wisdom it takes to balance justice's scales, especially when those scales teeter more precariously than a Texas twister on the horizon. So as you let the historical landscape broaden within your mind, recognize in those simple badges the complexity of an era unfolding. Therein lies the charm and challenge, resolving conflicts without throwing down one's hat entirely, making peace by way of peculiar plans, and solidifying laws, as flexible or firm as they needed to be, while serving a community blooming unfathomably fast along these burgeoning trails. With each tale and twist, Consider how the essence of being a sheriff was as much about negotiation and charity as it was duty and dedicationless about absolutes, more about adaptability, much like adapting from lull to history's restive rustle in this engaging narrative. Local policies, broken fences, and firm badges in a hand once trembling, perhaps, from fatigue more than fear such, is the scope of human endurance endlessly whispering through these storied lanes. As the sun dips into the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and cool lavender, your thoughts turn to one of the most enduring and thrilling aspects of the Old West, the quick draw. A scene so iconic that just the mention conjures a snappy melody and sepia-toned images. Imagine yourself standing on a dusty street, the air almost buzzing with tension, and the shadows lengthening as two figures face off, eyes locked, hands twitching above their holstered guns. The quick draw was far more than a skill, it was a performance, a grand spectacle of raw nerve and practiced finesse. This ability could determine your life's course in a realm where the law could be as swift and final as the pull of a trigger. The townsfolk, whether bystander or captivated audience, watched eagerly, the creak of the saloon's swinging doors barely audible over the collective heartbeat of anticipation. It's a scene so vivid you can almost taste the dust on your tongue, feel the grit underfoot, and sense the adrenaline electric in the air. Though often romanticized in modern storytelling, the reality was not as clean or glamorous. Many sheriffs wondered if skill even played a predominant role, or if it was merely luck and circumstance deciding fates. After all, in the high noon sun, where every movement is scrutinized, even a bead of sweat might shift the odds, and a misstep could mean the difference between legend and oblivion. In truth, some historians still argue whether the notorious duels that framed such heroic narratives were as prevalent as tales suggest. Documented events often seem miraculous, yet in reality, each draw demanded more than speed, it required intuitiveness, a near palpable tension shared between the two adversaries under universal judgments that transcended any legal decree. Beyond the rough charm, the quick draw illustrated a strange society that sometimes honored adrenaline over reason and speed over stance. Imagine scenes in dusty alleyways, where clouded honor was tested with tempered steel, a way to right a wrong or settle a grudge, irrespective of formal condemnation. You picture the light footsteps of a sheriff as he walks the fine line between preventing disorder and becoming an unseen observer to avoid communal ire. Yet the art of the quick draw extended well beyond confrontation. Beyond balconies and sheriff offices, families balanced the notion of honor against its shadow of retribution. Sheriffs understood this delicate balance, sometimes with grim humor, knowing their lives intertwined with those they might someday face off against. Consider this paradox as you reflect deeper. While the public viewed each duel as a story, the lawmen saw it as an extension of their ordains. The badge, a token of their commitment, often weighed heavy under the burden of knowing when to draw, even as they held the power to negotiate peace. It's riveting to think of a sheriff in the quiet after, guns reholstered, dust settling, life finding its rhythm again as the bystanders disperse. What must run through a lawman's mind post-standoff satisfaction, tinged with foreboding, knowing turbulence and triumph are siblings of the same day. Apart from its adrenaline-pumping facets, there's something whimsically incongruous about the quick draw's elegance, almost like a dance where timing meets tempo with humor, waiting on the sidelines to relieve tension's edge. After all, a quick draw didn't always end in gunfire. Sometimes, an agreement over a shared drink or a bet over cards smoothed ruffled feathers instead. So remember, amid the vastness of these landscapes, some echoes have bullet-like precision, but others, soft as laughter, carry a different weight. Each legend formed part of a greater story, written in the language of skies that swirled above frontier life. As the stories unwind throughout history's long tapestry, see in those shadowed images a world both real and imagined, sculpted by tales tall, true, or somewhere in between. The quick draw lingered as history paused to catch its breath, capturing imaginations across a cherished fragment of Western lore, continuing its watchful gaze over the dusty streets below. As the chilly breeze of the night wraps around you, imagine yourself stepping into the mysterious world of one of the Old West's iconic figures, Doc Holliday. A character whose story teeters between the heroic and the nefarious, Holliday embodies the gray areas of Western law and legend. Picture a man just over the threshold into middle age, with eyes that glint like gunmetal and a smile that could warm or warn, depending on the day. The air around Doc is thick with intrigue, a mix of tobacco and whiskey kissing each other in the glow of lamplight. A dentist by trade and gunfighter by fate, he was not your typical lawman, nor your typical outlaw. Holliday existed as a bridge between worlds, both saving smiles and sowing fear. You can almost hear the banter drifting from town to sleepy town. What do you call a dentist who might shoot you? Answer: Doc Holliday. In the sharp contrast between his professions lies a paradox as old as the Western landscape itself. His name is synonymous with one of the most famous shootouts in history, the gunfight at the OK Corral. It's an event fixed so firmly in Western lore that its retellings have become almost mythological. Here lies the question that teases historians still. Was Holliday there out of friendship, for duty, or for a love of chaos? Debate lingers, evaporating into the night air like smoke rings under a harvest moon. Picture Holliday, a man drawn to conflict both by choice and circumstance. He was known to have a quick wit and a quicker draw, a combination that made him both a beloved and feared figure. The allure of fame and infamy was not lost on him, and he seemed to walk the tightrope between with surprising grace. And for those standing on the sidelines of his escapades, it was equivalent to watching a tightrope walker, a thrilling combination of skill and suspense. Doc Holliday's lawfulness is many-layered. Consider the moments he stepped into a situation with surprising altruism, nerves of dynamite ready to defuse mortgages and sling justice in a world that revolved around its own son of moral ambiguity. He often found himself aligned with lawmen like Wyatt Earp, adding to the complexity of his character. Was he a gunfight enthusiast or a reluctant hero drawn into a fray not entirely of his own making? It's fodder for fireside discussion, as the benefit of hindsight lends as many truths as it breeds tales. Despite his combative engagements, Holliday wasn't just a figure of violence. Tales of his leisurely card games drift across the poker tables of history. In quiet moments, one could find him dallying over a game of faro, a cigarette hanging from the corner of his mouth, smoke weaving spells in the tavern light. Beneath the sharpshooting exterior was an educated man, one whose dark humor often softened the harder edges of his life. The West, with all its allure, drew to its edges those who thrived in the spaces where respectability and rebellion met. Holliday's narrative is a testament to this dynamic, showcasing the sharp turn of a card that could change a fortuneer of fate. Each flick of a wrist, each measured draw, not just a musical note in a larger symphony, but a reminder of the ardent unpredictability of that era. As you weave your own path through this intricate landscape, consider how these stories paint a picture of complex characters set against an unforgiving backdrop. Doc Holliday's legacy remains etched in the weather-worn boards of old saloons and the whispered tales shared around campfires. It's a dance of dichotomia, synergy of serious intention and unintended outcomes, much like the circular trails echoing across night's vast amphitheater. With the stars as your guide, tread softly through these murky tales to find clarity amid chaos. Note how each tale twists into history's long yarn, drawing enchantment from laughter and mystery, from truth a mesmerizing melody to send you sleepward. As you reflect on Doc Holliday's life, a hybrid tale of humanity and violence, imagine the role humor played in not just survival but celebration among the high-stakes games of life, where friends and foes alike walk the fine line between legend and reality. As the moon rises high and ethereal whispers of history echo around you, let's step into the footsteps of one of the Old West's most famous figures, Wyatt Earp. Picture yourself in Tombstone, Arizona, a town that seems to straddle the line between the dreamlike and the dusty remnants of hard reality. The streets are busy, the wooden sidewalks crowded with men and women whose lives weave into the fabric of a time defined by opportunity and danger. Wyatt Earp strides down these streets with a measured gait, his reputation preceding him like the dust cloud that kicks up in his wake. The air is electric, buzzing with the excitement that accompanies tales of a lawman who was both revered and reviled. Earp's presence is unmistakable, his stoic demeanor, the air around him tinged with an intensity that seems almost palpable. You could sense the weight of his responsibilities, as solid as the wrought iron of his watch chain. Walking alongside Earp, one might pose the question, was he the paragon of justice, or did his shadow fall a little differently than the legends tell? Opinions about Earp still spark scholarly debates, for his life story reminds us that history is rarely cleanly cut. Was his iconic place in history due to his unyielding sense of justice, or was it the product of some fortunate, if not controversial, twists of fate? One can't mention Earp without exploring the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral, an event that has transcended its moment to become the epitome of Western showdowns. Imagine the iconic scene unfolding before you, yet not as a rapid flurry, but a tense, simmering buildup followed by seconds of explosive chaos. In this moment, calm fractured into fury, and foundations of legend were laid in the dust of Tombstone's delicate balance between law and mayhem. The narrative describes Earp as poised as a viper, a man who somehow positioned control between crime and a six-shooter. You picture him emerging from these duels, not with a swagger, but a steady resilience tempered by the ceaseless miles he traveled. His story, a complex Western tapestry, woven in part from accurate recollections and embellished tales, reflects the rugged landscape that he helped tame. Historians still argue the intention and merit behind Earp's actions. Was he a calculated tactician or simply lucky? Some consider Earp's exploits to rival those of classic Roman heroes, with Roman-like virtue and vice in equal measure. His life is a benchmark for lawmen of the era, untangling problems with quiet determination, sometimes with brute force. Earp's demeanor hints at a layer of humor beneath the formidable exterior. After all, one couldn't walk the tumultuous line of frontier law without a bit of levity. As your imagination collects the vignettes of Earp walking the quieter hours, one might hear the soft laughter shared with companions, the clinking of glass marking earned reprieve. His life suggests a man unafraid to laugh, perhaps at absurdity's doorstep, when enforcement met the eccentricities of everyday life. Beyond the saloon doors and porch talk, Earp's legacy evolved into larger-than-life status, not always to his personal preference. As he lived his final days into the early 20th century, it's whispered that Earp lingered between legend construction and reality's drafting table, painfully aware of the duality of his fame and its vagaries. Those glimpses reflect the complexity of a man often simplified into cinematic brushstroke, a man of grit and grace, steely resolve finely tempered with pragmatism and peculiar amusement. In truth, the tales of Wyatt Earp embrace both skepticism and celebration, reminding us how stories much like shadows under a full moon can extend far from their origins. They call forth a world that balanced precariously between history and mythology, offering vibrant insights into humanity's timeless dance with questions of justice and identity. As you rest your thoughts, think of Earp's steady stride, listen to the stillness following his pistol's echo fading into morning's light. Carry the enchantment of this journey softly into your own frontier of dreams, imagining perhaps what Wyatt himself might muse: a life where law is only part of the story, where beyond the legends awaits the comfort of a quiet, knowing laugh. As the night settles into a deeper shade of blue, you find yourself transported to the bustling heart of Dodge City, a place that thrummed with life and vibrancy, teetering on the edge of chaos and camaraderie. Dodge City, a name that rolls off the tongue like a challenge, is where history's rugged narrative marries mayhem with a dash of mirth. You wander down these storied streets, the flickering glow of gas lamps revealing just as much as they obscure. The air is thick with the scent of cigar smoke and the faint hint of whiskey, melodies of piano music spilling out of saloon doors. Dodge City was the linchpin of cattle drives and served as a notorious hotspot for rowdy cowboys looking to let off steam. With that reputation came sheriffs, who were tasked with nothing short of taming the untameable. In this lively portrait, sheriffs wore their hats askance with the knowledge that here the rule of law was as flexible as a gambler's etiquette. Dodge City's lawmen operated with a certain panache, knowing full well the power of humor amidst their duties. Imagine the sight: a sheriff swaggering down the street, a crooked grin on his face, ready to lay down the law or at least make a good-natured attempt at it. Among these lawmen was the legendary Bat Masterson, a name that echoes through the legend like the distant roll of thunder. Masterson exuded charisma, with a flair for not only dealing with lawbreakers, but also charming the socks off quite a few mischief-makers. He was known to handle disturbances with a diplomacy that hinged as much on comedic skills as on conflict resolution. Consider how Masterson and his peers managed the lively chaos of cowboys eager to let loose after a long cattle drive. Picture the scene: a collection of rowdy cowpokes itching for a fight, their boisterous laughter tumbling through the streets like tumbleweeds, only to be met by a sheriff with a twinkle in his eye and a suggestion to resolve matters over a friendly game of poker. Here, wit cut through tension better than any knife, and the real prize was often a quick laugh or a jest shared over a cold drink. The sheriffs of Dodge City weren't just enforcers, they were performers on a stage of endless live-action interactions. Their roles called for the ability to de-escalate situations with humor as a shield, knowing that a strategically placed quip could lubricate tensions better than oil. Historians still debate whether these comedic exchanges were deliberately scripted or naturally unfolding operas of absurdity. Were the townsfolk in on the act, or did the unpredictability of the human condition lend an air of unpredictability to these spontaneous events? The question tickles the minds of scholars, shaping conversations as fluid as the rivers that darken the prairie. As you survey the scene, you envisage how these lawmen were caught in an ongoing dance with lawlessness, sometimes participating in antics that tiptoed along the edge of propriety. The town's fabric was a patchwork quilt of colorful threads, sewn together by the camaraderie of their shared experiences. Dodge City's lawmen illustrated the fine balance between stern control and the necessity of humor when addressing volatile situations. In retrospect, the antics here bring forth the broader mosaic of Western towns, where law and disorder coexisted with a kind of begrudging harmony. It is whispered through the ages that sometimes the funniest tales emerged from the most mundane circumstances, the antics serving as laughable antidotes to the stressors of life. And as the night velvet clings to Dodge City's lively silhouette, leaving a gentle aftertaste of nostalgia against the stark realities of paperwork and duties, you settle into the idea that laughter, in its simplest form, acted as another deputy bracing against the stormy moods of an unpredictable human melange. Here, humor was not just a trait, but a tool, twirling as part of the sheriff's arsenal and keeping the peace against all odds. So, with each sequence portrayed on this historical stage, recognize in Dodge City an emblem of how sometimes it is the laughter, unencumbered by its surroundings, that fashions stories strong enough to endure time's gentle erosion. As those cobbled paths echo with echoes of spirited tales, let your lids grow heavy, your mind rolling with the rhythmic cadence of hooves and heartbeats, guided toward the horizon with a softly shared jest for company. As soft echoes of laughter fade into the evening air, take a step deeper into the multifaceted world of Western sheriffs by examining their dual reputations, those painted in both hues of nobility and infamy. Across these dusty trails and bustling towns, sheriffs often found themselves balancing on that fine line between hero and scoundrel, casting long shadows that history would never fully illuminate. Visualize a golden morning in a small town just waking up, the air crisp, awakened by the chirps of early birds. Here, sheriffs presented themselves as paragons of justice, swathed in the simplicity of their duties, maintaining peace, breaking up barroom brawls, or escorting miscreants to temporary quarters in the local jailhouse. Yet, this was but one side of the coin. The common perception of a sheriff was as a peacekeeper, defending vulnerable citizens from the chaos of untamed territories. But when those borders between right and wrong blurred, reputation often followed suit. Heroic figures could just as quickly cross into notoriety, driven by the complexities hidden beneath their badges. Historians paint them neither strictly as villains nor saints, but rather as chess players caught in a perpetual stratagem with the land and its people. Consider the character of Henry Plummer, a sheriff whose name rings with infamy. At one point credited with the law, Plummer, with his charismatic demeanor, was soon suspected of leading an outlaw gang. Imagine his lauded magnetic charm morphing into murmurings around Tona tale that sparked debates, wondering whether Plummer was double-playing with masterful ambiguity or a misunderstood figure ensnared by rumor. His fate left historians arguing over facts blurred by time, viewing him through lenses both cynical and romantic. Similarly, other sheriffs, too, wore their flaws prominently on their sleeves, often following paths that dictated a peculiar dance between myth and misconduct. Some engaged in practical politics, where alliances weren't as straightforward as a steed on open terrain they were, in fact, knotted trails to be untangled with diplomacy or sometimes dubious decisions. In juxtaposing these varying reputations, imagine honest clerks whispering in the lulls of general stores, weighing the latest happenings over meticulously fingered strands of licorice. Such conversations, mundane yet profound, were the framework for how communities perceived their peacekeepers. This enigmatic balance often played out on a grand stage, whether in Texas or Nevada, casting the sheriff's badge as both shield and sword, one to protect, as it occasionally betrayed. As you journey through these conversions, the involvement of personal interpretation becomes apparent. Did perceptions dictate behavior, or vice versa, in an era reliant on the spoken word rather than definitive proof? Scholars, too, find themselves entrenched in discussions about these dual reputations. Did ambition drive certain lawmen's misconduct, or were their actions mere responses to lawless lands filled with characters equally eclectic and erratic? These unending debates add threads to the grand historical tapestry, vibrant with possibilities awaiting interpretation by each passerby. In retrospect, these storied figures become poignant reminders of humanity's capability to both falter and thrive upon the shifting sands of motive and action. As you contemplate these tales, the flickering light of history showcases lives lived loudly, quietly, nobly, and questionably under that same wide western sky. More than anything, these stories remind you why history endures with complexity, because it reflects the human condition, full of quirks and conflicts, honor and humor. The Old West, with its lawmen, leaves a lasting impression, not just on American folklore, but as a mirror to us all, reflecting the intricacies of leadership and legacy. So let the curtain fall softly on this tale of duality. Find a moment to ponder the ripple effects of choices made under pressure, beneath the relentless gaze of sun and society. As you tuck into this lullaby of history, let the whispers of western winds carry you, ponder as they may, deeper into slumber beneath an eternity of stars riding the undulating currents overhead. Fluctuations of morality weave gently with gossamer dreams, drifting across time, silence filling the spaces between soft breaths and history's vocal reverberations. The night deepens its inky embrace, and you find yourself drawn to the subtle humor and improvisation woven into the daily duties of a sheriff in the Wild West, a land where chaos reigned supreme and the rulebook was a rough sketch, scrawled in dust and hope. Picture the landscape morphing into a montage of dusty streets, the comforting creak of leather saddles, and the sharp crack of boots on sun-drenched planks. In these rugged territories, lawmen needed more than a badge and a gun. They required quick thinking and even quicker wit when conventional procedures seemed as fluid as a saloon's cocktail menu. Imagine a typical day where maintaining order could mean navigating between fistfights and philosophical debates about frontier justice, each laden with echoes of laughter and lessons learned. You walk through the dusky streets, spotting a sheriff leaning against a post, savoring the last of the day's light with a wry smile, hinting at the unspoken absurdities of his role. The towns they guarded were mosaics of characters, each contributing to a bustling farce of everyday life and legality. When sheriffs faced situations demanding more than brute force-giving way to theater-like diplomacy, they perfected the art of comedy. The Old West seemed like a grand stage where sheriffs played with ironic flair, combining the bravery of knights under medieval banners with jesters' cunning charm. It feels a bit like a Shakespearean extract, doesn't it? Where bawdy humor often disguised poignant truths. In these remote towns, law was sometimes upheld by creative strategies that danced between ludicrous theatrics and incredible ingenuity. Imagine a sheriff settling a rambunctious saloon dispute by dressing one cowboy up in his rival's clothes, only to watch the amusement diffuse the tension much like a shooting star diffuses night's clarity with its brief, bright blaze. These roles required sheriffs to balance on the tightrope of sanity and absurdity, finding humor where possible. It served as both a sanity check and a light-hearted relief from the otherwise perilous pursuit of peace. Historians still argue whether such whims were tactical advantages or desperate bids to preserve order amongst true anarchy. Picture now a bustling street scene where a sheriff, facing a too-altered throng, concocts an impromptu game mimicking a hunt giving each person a warranty badge to keep the chaos contained, a gesture as strikingly odd as it was effective. It's these little moments of levity that nourish both memory and myth, where lawmen outplayed disorder in the most unexpected ways. Consider, too, the sheriff's function as town crier and psychologist, often convened at the moment's notice with colorful, eclectic townsfolk whose reputations spread like gossip on a hot wind. The role wasn't just in practicing law, but in practicing understanding the ability to see the human farce dwelling behind each act of frivolity or fury. Think of the ethical quandaries faced, the decisions balanced atop humor's delicate pedestal and assurance that amid life's stark realities, laughter offered not just distraction but a gentle reminder of shared humanity. Here, chuckles and chortles, light as dandelion wisps, grounded by the weight of meaningful connection. As you absorb this insight, drifting softly into the embrace of dreams, consider how humor in the face of adversity paints a vivid picture of life in the wilderness of history, reminding us that amidst challenges, ingenuity can turn the most mundane of circumstances into cherished, if whimsical, stories. Feel the town quiet around you, lulled into tranquility under the wide, comforting sky. The sheriff's antics serve as a mellifluous overture to your sleepy thoughts, threads of laughter strung together to paint a vivid tapestry in which you find yourself warmly wrapped tonight. Here, in the subdued solitude spiced with stories, allow your breaths to deepen, riding the gentle current of ancient laughter into the soothing depths of slumber. The early dawn light silhouettes the horizon as you ride into the broader world of the Lone Star State, where the sands and sheriffs hold tales of both loneliness and loosely governed law. The larger-than-life reputation of Texas lawmen earned its stripes amid the wild, sprawling landscapes, dotted with outposts barely holding onto civilization's fringes. Texas, land of mavericks and mystery, embraced its own unique breed of lawmen. You find yourself saturated in the crisp morning air, catching the scent of mesquite on the breeze amid the distant lowing of cattle, a prelude to the unique brand of justice practiced here. Intrepid individuals known as the Texas Rangers patrolled these vast stretches by day and night, their stories interwoven with the legends marking this indomitable ground. Here law was as wide as the horizon itself, painted with broad strokes of persistence and shades of unpredictability. Imagine the steely gaze of a Texas sheriff fixing on the vastness ahead, a landscape as open and unsettled as the challenges they chased. In this scene, you see a figure riding alongside these county boundaries, a convergence of rider, road, and right. The rangers were both heroes and highwaymen, custodians and coroners, wielding their unique blend of independence with an air of rugged authority. Texas, a peculiar theater where law unfolded in chapters of bravery, and bravado requires understanding and grit to interpret its seasonal script. The sheriff's badge, prominently worn as both shelter and sword, was a promise as steadfast as a frontier sunrise. It symbolized both the heavy mantle of duty and the lassoed control sheriffs had over this cavalcade of cultures and customs bustling through the borders. Envision yourself along these trails, feeling the earth's harsh kiss beneath horse hooves, the sun branding sheriffs' backs as they patrolled an expanse that seemed as endless as the challenges before them. The range was both battlefield and stage, parody and performance, where Texas lawmen juggled every possible jest and justice with awe-inspiring decorum. You can almost hear the tales of bravery and brashness that shaped the Texas sheriff's identity. These stories echo through time, carried on the winds, and transposed onto the unwritten chapters of modernity. Consider Jack Hayes, a name entwined with bravery, a man whose strategies and engagements against Comanche raids crafted scenes worthy of a playwright's grand endeavor. Hayes exemplified the cleverness these lawmen needed, one part daredevil, one part diplomat. With Texas proudly sprawled at the heart of such tales, the Texan version of justice sometimes unfolded more like improvisational theater. Was it luck or fate that allowed these sheriffs to balance their books with both cunning and curved humor, a Molotov cocktail of moments epic and absurd? Perhaps the debates among historians indicate no conclusive answer, yet offer glimpses into a genuine enigma, decades-long exercise in philosophical argument. These sheriffs were figures as enigmatic as the terrains they guarded, drenched in sunlight's golden dust and moonlight's gentle balm. Each badge was a symphony of solitude and synthesis, a call to action, commitment, and humor as natural as a prairie breeze. As the riders took rest under starlit skies, galaxies unfurled above, casting peaceful illumination on a world too often wrapped in turmoil. With each tail and tip of a hat, let the stories of Texas sheriffs float into your consciousness. Imagine the camaraderie and ideals thriving in this unyielding wilderness, poised on the edge of chaos, where laughter frequently underscored the unsettled territory with a softened grace punctuating tension's hold. Quiet your thoughts alongside this chorus where the wide world of Texas law made room for dreamers and doers, interweaving narratives of law and lore with the silky textures of night air. As you drift further into this realm of celestial solitude and historic harmony, let the lullabies of laughter and law lull you to a serene surrender, akin to the promises heralded by Texas's wide, welcoming dawn. Under the vast and infinite western sky, where stars seem to whisper tales of yesteryears, you find yourself drawn into the unconventional justice deeply rooted in the theatrical heart of rodeo culture. Imagine a place where cowboys and lawmen shared the arena, not just for crowd-pleasing spectacles, but as a display of arbitration of a different kind. This intersection of law and livestock provided a colorful panorama of life on the western frontier. Around you, the air is pregnant with anticipation, punctuated by eager murmurs from onlookers lining the fences. Bulls snort impatiently. Horses paw the dusty ground. And a sheriff stands nearby, adapting to a crowd that expects law to interlude their daily lives with a comedic twist. Think of the rodeo as more than just a competitive showcase. It served as a social gathering, a place where disputes could be resolved instead of fists flying, tensions unwound by laughter's unraveling charm. Law here was played out amid the hoots and hollers, straight shooters becoming stand-up comedians of the range. The rodeo lassoed justice in a manner as intricate and artful as any cowboy's rope tricks. Picture a sheriff stepping into this corral, dauntless face ruddy from the sun's onslaught, his badge gleaming as much from laughter's mirth as from light. You see him moderating disagreements by instigating playful shenanigans, say, an impromptu calf roping contest deciding the outcome rather than drawing pistols. It's a scene seasoned with both tradition and a sense of tacit agreement. Let the best cowboy win, and perhaps peace will ride the coattails of prowess. The ingenuity of roping problem-solving into a rodeo reflects humanity's charming resilience. Instead of escalating to violence, many sheriffs learned to balance seriousness with satire, employing a deft skill set where creativity served as an unheralded hallmark. Imagine disputes rendered harmless by turning cunning into contests, wearing emotions as weapons until the dust of conflict settled. In these dusty circles, jovial justice frequently borrowed the show's limelight, with rivalries hashed out under the guise of good-natured competition. It's a curious spectacle to turn grievances into gambles, riding the unpredictability of human behavior like those broncos beneath them. For the observers, this held a cheering appeal, a humane alternative where community needled connection and camaraderie amid clouds of settled dust. While historians argue about the efficacy of such unconventional methods, they collectively nod at the portrayals of these events, illustrating a society willing to soften its rigid exterior with humor, an acceptably civilized spectacle resplendent against the western sun. This tableau pulls at the imagination, forming stitched memories carried into the present where laughter and amicable rivalry stitch us all along familiar lines. The rodeo, then, echoed both practical utility and a satirical edge, breathing life into law's rigidity and humanizing its sternness with a gentle poke. Reflect on how these lawmen embodied both practicality and playfulness, understanding that justice was best served with a loosely bound lasso and softened hearts. And as the night encloses around you, settling you closer toward dreams, consider these rodeo arbiters of old, whose legacy wound through long prairie shadows, spanning twilight's stretch across open lands. Envision the rodeo's sway over disputes, its laughter-cushioned laments, weaving storied amusements that blend with night's comforting silence, a chorus of history gently held within your pillowed thoughts. Let the gallop of pony hooves and gentle murmurs of bygone audiences accompany you into the night as sleep unfolds its own quiet spectacle within you. Allow the truces of past arenas, marked by gentle laughter and skillful conciliation, to guide you smoothly into the harmonious serenity of slumber, much like sheriffs wrestled both bovine and burden in their legendary pastures. As the stars weave their tapestry across the velvety expanse of the night sky, the tales of the Wild West take yet another curious turn. Picture yourself amid a bustling frontier town, its pulse steady and strong, fueled by stories both whispered and loudly proclaimed. Here, where the crooked smiles of snake oil salesmen mingle with the resolute gazes of sheriffs, lies a dynamic relationship ripe with both cunning and camaraderie. The air is tinged with the heady aroma of freshly brewed coffee, mingling with the herbal concoctions that entrap unsuspecting passers-by. A melodious murmur ebbs and flows through the throng, merchants hawking their wares with promises they've sold cures for everything, from hangovers to heartbreaks. In this lively milieu, law is both an enactment and a performance, each player aware of their role in the ever-unfolding play. You watch as a sheriff strolls down the busy street, head slightly turned, eyes vigilant for mischief wrapped in the guise of sincerity. His role, part protector, part referee, is to ensure that the delicate dance between honest commerce and elaborate charade never tips too far into dishonesty. And frequently, you discover, humor is his best tool. The snake oil salesmen, those purveyors of promise, are often as shrewd as sheriffs, peddling their wares with words spun by wile and wit. Here lies a curious symbiosis. The world of lawmen and tricksters intertwines like the braids of a wild mustang's mane, humor prevailing as the ultimate regulatory tool. Imagine an enterprising salesman setting up shop on a corner, his voice rising above the clamor with claims embellished to tantalizing tallness. The sheriff, standing nearby, feigns interest while maintaining aloofness. A quiet banter dances between them, challenging yet game. Conversations unfold like a chess match, both sides aiming to outmaneuver the other, yet with a detectable and mutual admiration for skillful deception. Reflect now on the difficulties faced by these lawmen, whose assessment of truth and trickery was constantly tested. What proves intriguing is the sheriff's ability to render deceit, non-threatening, coaxing out plans every bit as clever as the contraptions they doled. It's an eternal balancing act, weighing crimes against creativity, legality against cleverness, all laced with a touch of genial grace. Historians still argue whether such interactions blurred the lines of legality or merely highlighted the shared understanding that laws were, in the Wild West, as mutable as a change of wind. It makes you wonder, were these exchanges built on complicity or simply a nod to human inventiveness, testament to what happens when creativity nudges against a stern framework. The rapport between sheriffs and snake oil salesmen underscores a shared human impulse, the need to find humor amidst hardship, connection within conflict. Imagine bartering joviality against a catalog of cures, transactions occurring with the fluidity of a stream running through the prairie. At times, sheriffs themselves might have engaged in performances not unlike those of the salesmen, stretching truth to accommodate exigency or embellishing risk to preserve peace, an approach as sly as it was subtle, but suggesting the edgelord played upon in this vibrant theater of human endeavor. These exchanges remind us of the wry understanding that can spark between those on opposing sides, where laughter lightens load and winks add their own layer of understanding. If you play your cards right, even as a judge of others, you never fail to anticipate the next clever card shuffle. In this historic unfolding, recognize the human propensity for duality, the gift of seeing the show unfold but being part of the story, where laughter tempers tension and where performances persist alongside plain reality. Let your thoughts ride the ebb of this harmonious interplay into the gentle contours of sleep. As the town's vibrations resolve into whispers and the moon crests high, sink slowly into your own gentle sojourn, cradled by the echoes of exchanges painted with the brushstrokes of humor and humanity. Find peace in knowing history's theater continues, its actors merely shifting roles as the script leads toward timeless tranquility. The dim glow of lanterns dances across well-worn paths, guiding you into yet another captivating dimension of Western life, the art of disguise and deception, practiced sometimes aptly by the very sheriffs sworn to uphold the law. The night settles in with a gentle whisper, coaxing stories from the shadows where cobwebs of cleverness sometimes took precedent over blunt force. Imagine the cool night air carrying tales of masked endeavors and cloaked intentions. Here, amidst the rugged landscape, where uncertainty was as constant as the stars, lawmen occasionally donned disguises to maneuver through worlds unfamiliar and enigmatic, turning necessity into an art form. Consider the symbolism behind their badges, reflecting moonlight and reflecting purpose. These were the faces of authority, yet on occasion, these lawmen would blend into the fabric of society with gossamer stealth, their aim not to deceive for deceit's sake, but rather to disperse chaos with calculated cunning. Picture a sheriff swapping his stalwart presence for an incognito rendezvous at a local saloon, slipping into the character of a drifter or prospector, slick with anonymity. Incognito, he becomes both observer and participant, blending into the rhythmic chaos, painting the room with laughter and lies, a chameleon cloaked in dusty garb. In these instances, where presiding with formality might stifle truth, sheriffs wielded disguise not as deception, but as discovery. They transformed ordinary moments into opportunities to listen, unraveling mysteries from beneath their facades. The atmosphere buzzes with unheeded secrets, like the tension in the air before a summer storm. In this theater of subtlety, play intrigued historians who still argue the ethics behind a lawman's masquerade. Was it a necessary evil in chaotic times, or did the masks slip just a bit too far beyond the legal frontier? Such debates glide through time like a wisp of smoke, absorbing into the broader dialogue of justice. Now, reflect on the quaint paradox. Lawmen who traded visible justice for the art of concealment gifting them insight into the underbelly of their jurisdiction. Was this espionage at its most rudimentary, or a masterclass in presence, illusion, and persuasion? These tales, juxtaposing the integrity of law with the invention of disguise, paint a textured picture of a world vibrant with duality. In towns where every face was familiar, a shift in guise allowed lawmen to traverse paths otherwise barricaded. The performance was cautious, never careless. Thoughtful smiles replaced threats, and riddles as justice swirled through conversation like smoke curled above coffee cups, inviting camaraderie from behind veiled guises. In summary, these lawmen were artisans in their craft, weaving truth and translation into an intricate skein of half-shadows. Their anonymity was a passing moment, a means to end a quiet dance on the stage of law, where earnest hearts met elusive eyes. Through this lens, permit yourself to see the charm and challenge bound into the shroud of mysterious lawmen, their legacies tinged with intrigue, sparking vibrant tales carried on the wind like scatterings of gold dust. As you turn towards slumber, let these stories of disguise surround you, their protective cloak warming you into the gentle embrace of sleep's honesty. Lean back into the silence, allowing the aromatic embrace of time-tested tales to carry you inward. Within this vast night of possibilities where history's masks have slipped, find the cradle of calm in being unseen, unjudged, and serene beneath the constellation's knowing watchfulness. As the night deepens and the stars above settle into their quiet vigil, reflect upon the multifaceted and sometimes contentious role of the sheriff in the sprawling tapestry of the Wild West. Imagine the dusty streets, illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns hanging from wooden porches, casting long shadows that conceal as much as they reveal. It is here that each sheriff's story unfolds in hues of both protector and persecutor, leaving a legacy as complex as the terrain they once patrolled. Picture yourself walking alongside these guardians of order, feeling the familiar rhythm of spurs jingling softly with each step. In an era where law was malleable and often subjective, the role of the sheriff was imbued with both authority and ambiguity. It was a role where honor danced with ethics, and every decision could cast ripples wider than any one man's intention. Sheriffs were entrusted with not only upholding the law but interpreting a task that demanded insight and intuition as they balanced the harmony of the law on a tightrope of morality and common sense. With gulfs as wide as the prairies they managed, justice often borrowed methods from theater, stroking the fine line where protectors became persecutors due to necessity or misperception. Consider a sheriff faced with a choice. In a world sparse with witnesses or written rules, any decision, whether lenient or stringent, morphed into truths that shaped their legacy. An act of compassion could be seen as weakness. A firm hand could be mistaken for tyranny. The sheriff's heart, much like the ground around, was often burdened with the weight of navigating these moral crossroads. This notion invites the speculation of historians, who still debate how these figures decided when to wield a heavy hand and when to cloak their motives in understanding and forgiveness. Was perpetual conflict an unavoidable element, or a byproduct of the narrative we ascribe to these times? This conversation strolls through time like a shadow on silent boots, entering the collective consciousness of history. Reflect on the paradox faced by these lawmen, who were, perhaps, instruments of justice in a constantly shifting world. Some were hailed as heroes, others cursed as crooks, each title a reflection or refraction of their actions under the luminous scrutiny of hindsight. The ghostly echoes of a once-inhabited jail yard might whisper of such decisions, arrests made with hesitance, sentences pronounced with regret. Yet in this juxtaposition lies the inherent human fascination with balancing order and empathy, trusting that the harsh treasury of right and wrong never truly spent itself into simplicity. Intrigued by this stark dichotomy, Lawman, as both the law and an embodiment of imperfection townsfolk, saw both protector and persecutor, often through the same prism. Was it society carving narrative from action, twisting every decision against an ever-changing backdrop? The law, as applied, blended like inks on water, where a gentle nudge or an unsympathetic shove could incite ripples unforeseen. As the winds of change sweep these plains, painting them with the stories of yesteryear, these vital tales remind us of the perpetual dance between power and compassion, illuminating the heart of humanity with every unguarded moment. Tonight, as you surrender to slumber, let the stories of these sheriffs, grappling with their roles, unravel within your dreams. Embrace the complexity of their narratives, carried by the gentle cadence of history's breath against your cheeks. Bask in the understanding that every choice, every question posed against the stars above, completes a singular ring of meaning within the circle of sleep's embrace. As the night weaves its intricate patterns across the vast expanse of sky, you turn your gaze toward the eclectic and oftentimes humorous ensemble that formed the heart of frontier justice, the Posse. Imagine the winding trails that snake through the landscape, with each step marked by dust and ambition, as a motley crew of individuals band together under the rallying call of a sheriff in need of support. The Posse was a concept born of necessity, ingenuity, and, at times, pure entertainment. Picture yourself joining this band of Brinks, a dynamic tapestry of personalities coming together with the singular aim of upholding the law, each one as diverse as the land they trudge across. It was Jefferson's Declaration of Independence that set the stage for such democratic ideals, where ordinary citizens could rise and fulfill the call to assist their local sheriffs. Here, everyone from ranch hands to retired soldiers might be deputized, their combined efforts creating a formidable force built on the hopes of community and the grit of shared resolve. Across the dusty landscape, you witness the sheriff rallying his posse, a sight as emblematic of the West as the open plains. Each posse member bore the dual role of cowboy and custodian, wielding weapons and wit as easily as their herd-trailing peers. Yet, as serious as their mission might be, the inclusion of humor within their duties was as unavoidable as the long shadows they cast along the ridges. Consider the dynamics within this group. Each person brought to the fold bore a unique skill set. Some wielded lassos and laughter in equal measure, while others possessed a knack for solving problems with the unswerving accuracy of a lassoed calf. It wasn't all hard riding and harsher conditions. There was room for camaraderie and comic relief amidst the responsibilities of tracking outlaws and maintaining a good-natured spirit. The menagerie might include a bevy of characters, each with stories to share around the evening's campfire. An affable trapper recounts tales of his crafty quarry, hoping to lighten the mood and perhaps the burden of the task at hand. Imagine a musician strumming a guitar while wisecracking about the day's events, his melody as soothing as it was humorous. In this ensemble of earnest folk, you find friendships forged over shared hardships and relieved tensions, their laughter echoing across the wilderness. The sheriff, bearing a warm grin, presides over this microcosm with gentle authority, knowing that maintaining order meant balancing strategy with silliness. Historians still argue the role laughter played in sustaining morale within these groups, where relationships formed alliances fostering unity among disparate souls. Did humor act as the necessary glue binding these individuals as they traversed rugged terrain? It seems, in the absence of traditional ties, a jest shared could tip the balance, warding off misfortune amid perilous assignments. It's an interesting thought, the silent understanding between a lawman and his men, where a timely chuckle might be the difference between disharmony and diligence. In a time when threats loomed large against the backdrop of unsure alliances, humor emerged as a stabilizing force, setting the cadence for stories bound in both circumstance and camaraderie. As you visualize this night's gathering, the flickering flame before you plays off the shadows as they dance along the horizon. Here, even in the soft glow cast beyond the fire's edge, the specter of contention gives way to a peaceful intercourse between individuals determined to bring a touch of humanity and humor to the embers of their historic ambitions. So, wrap yourself in this tapestry, created by the stories of Posse's past, as their echoes resonate through the canyons and into the soothing folds of slumber. Imagine the camaraderie of these makeshift bands stitching their shared tales into the seam of history, where laughter, leaps into legend on the quiet hoofbeats of time, fortifying your journey into dreams. Fill your rest with the warm assurance of levity's blessing, guiding you ever deeper into softness under the starlit canopy. As the soft, downy tendrils of night envelop the landscape, you turn your gaze toward the softer side of sheriffs in the Wild West. Beyond the hardened exteriors and stalwart duties lay stories of unexpected tenderness, where lawmen displayed moments of remarkable kindness in a world often defined by its rough edges. Here, amid tales of gunslingers and grand adventures, the quiet deeds of sheriffs weave threads of humanity into the vast tapestry of the untamed frontier. Picture a small town, quiet under the blanket of moonlight, its simple buildings casting long, gentle shadows across the streets. Imagine the sheriff roaming these familiar paths, his presence reassuring to those who called this place home. As much as his role demanded toughness, beneath the badge beat a heart often stirred by compassion and empathy. These sheriffs understood that maintaining peace was not only about enforcing the law but also nurturing the community they served. Consider the bustling schoolhouse, a beacon of hope for families eager to lay roots in uncertain ground. It was not uncommon for a sheriff to take on the mantle of a mentor, guiding young minds and hearts with patience and wisdom, imparting lessons as valuable as any learned on the trail. You can almost hear the laughter of children mingling with the soft voice of the sheriff, gentle yet firm in his counsel of balance between authority and approachability. Reflect on the story of a sheriff pausing on his patrol to help a settler family rebuild their barn after a powerful storm swept across the plains. Picture the camaraderie that blooms in those moments, where the sheriff isn't merely an enforcer of rules but a friend, a neighbor. In these gestures, they fortified the unspoken covenant between protector and protected. An intriguing debate lingers among historians, whether these acts of kindness were strategic, calculated to solidify allegiance and unity, or simply genuine expressions of the human spirit flourishing even in environments defined by their brutality. Was tenderness the exception on the frontier, or an unheralded norm, understated but enduring? Imagine, too, the sheriff's presence at social gatherings, a wedding under a starlit sky, where he mingles with townsfolk, sharing in their joy and weaving the fabric of kinship tighter with every smile exchanged. He becomes not merely a figure of authority but a living thread binding the community, ensuring it doesn't falter beneath the weight of its challenges. In these quiet moments, where deeds speak louder than words, you observe sheriffs as purveyors of peace, generosity framing every interaction. Even the briefest exchanges were rich with understanding. A nod here, a wink there, a universal language of goodwill, echoing softly through time. These snapshots of kindness reveal an understated heroism, unfounded by grand narratives but no less significant. They remind us that where humanity threads through the weft of history, it gilds the past with shades of enduring warmth, transforming perceptions from mere enforcers to cherished custodians of their domain, not just by law, but by heart. As you contemplate these stories, let them wash over you with a soothing tide of peaceful awareness. Picture the seeds of kindness sown in the past, sprouting into stories reinforcing hope and harmonia, gentle reminder that even rugged hearts can harbor fields of gentleness and grace. Tonight, as you drift further into the soft embrace of sleep, let the tales of these kindly lawmen enrich your dreams. Allow the echoes of their humanity to guide you toward a realm where warmth and compassion keep vigilant watch over your spirit, a night bound by the assurance that kindness, however fleeting, leaves an indelible mark on the soul of history, cradling you gently through night's journey into dawn's gentle embrace. As the quiet of the night deepens, let your thoughts wander into the complex psychology of a peacekeeper in the Wild West, a world defined by its shifting sands and uncertain boundaries. Here, amid the endless expanse of rugged landscapes and raw ambition, the sheriffs who patrolled these lands harbored minds as intricate and untamed as the territories they sought to tame. Imagine the burdens carried by these lawmen as they rode through the harsh terrains. Beneath the stoic exterior, A kaleidoscope of emotions churned the innate tension of balancing justice with survival that often mirrored the eternal play of light and shadow across the prairies. Each decision they made etched a line on their hearts, as certain as the trails they followed. The sheriff's mind was a tapestry woven from the threads of duty, ambition, and intuition, combining into a seamless pattern of resilience. Some days were buoyant with triumph, while others bore the weight of decisions made in haste or conflict. The role required an astounding capacity for self-reflection, honing the instincts that enabled them to navigate a world rife with unpredictability. As you walk alongside them, listen to the hushed whispers of insecurities and aspirations shared under the nighttime canopy. Their days were filled with a cacophony of decisions and duties, but the tranquility of a starlit sky afforded moments for introspection, where inner dialogues unraveled as a thread through the labyrinthine pathways of their thoughts. Consider the inner conflict that arose when enforcing laws that weren't clear-cut, laws as non-negotiable as the wind's direction on a stormy night. These lawmen confronted challenges balancing duty with ethical dilemmas, their minds grappling between ideals and survival, a duality reflected in the oscillations of the night breeze. Even now, historians debate the mental toll this line of work extracted from these sheriffs. Were they inherently predisposed to handle the stress, or did their resilience stem from the relentless necessity for adaptability and acceptance of the unforeseen? The answer, elusive as the wily coyote, slips between pages of history yet remains lodged in the collective psyche. Within these inner sanctuaries of stress and contemplation, humor emerged as a relief valve, a means to diffuse tensions festering within. Jokes shared over campfires and laughter exchanged in crowded saloons provided a buoyancy to weary spirits, a subtle acknowledgement that, amid chaos, the ability to connect and laugh could restore balance. Contemplating the psychology of these peacekeepers, you're drawn to the way they framed their world, a blend of their experiences, knowledge, and unerring instincts to find the right path through moral ambiguity. Their minds were a compass aligning with principles sometimes clear, at other times obscured by the haze of consequence. The mind of a lawman was itself a land to be navigated, a terrain fraught with memories, hopes, and hard-won wisdom. As they lay down on the soil beneath a star-filled sky, their thoughts took flight, traversing dreams and realities in equal measure, seeking solace within, even as they sought to bring peace without. As you reflect more on this psychological landscape, imagine how their dreams were colored by their experience as sheriffs, dreaming with one eye open, alert even in the realm of restfulness. Every choice, every laugh, every quiet moment of vulnerability contributed to a psyche both resilient and haunted, protecting communities while unraveling the questions within themselves. Allow these thoughts to cradle you into slumber as you let the echoes of their unspoken challenges resonate within. Embrace the calm of the night, letting their whispered ruminations guide you toward your own peaceful introspection. Knowing that, like them, you too guard the perimeters between hope and apprehension, between waking and sleeping, an ethereal vigil beneath an endless sea of stars. As the stillness of the night envelops you, casting a serene pallor over the landscape, you find yourself stepping into the heart of one of the most iconic motifs of the Wild West, the high noon showdown. Picture the sun hanging at its zenith, the heat shimmering like a veil over the dusty Main Street, each building casting razor-sharp shadows beneath its eaves. In this world where life clings to every dramatic moment, the high noon showdown stands as a timeless symbol of courage and suspense. You find yourself amidst a hushed town, its usual bustling energy stilled, with onlookers peering through half-drawn curtains or assembling along the dusty promenade. There's an anticipatory silence in the air, just as heavy and foreboding as a thundercloud on the horizon, waiting to uncoil. In the center of this anticipative tableau stand two figures facing each other, the daylight refusing to choose sides. The showdown is not just a contest of speed and precision, but a moment that distills the essence of bravery and resolution into its purest form. You can hear the slow creak of leather and the faint rustle of a tumbleweed crossing an unyielding expanse, adding rhythm to the tightly coiled tension. A form of theatrical expression, the high noon duel was more than a mere duel. It was a declaration, a demonstration of character, where actions spoke in a language as old as nobility, yet as raw as survival instincts. It honed the narrative of the West, brought to life under this blistering Sunan art mastered by few, remembered by many, engraved into the sands of history as sharply as into the minds of those who witnessed it. Historians still argue how widespread and frequent these confrontations were, but whether factual or fictional, their resonance reverberates through the annals of Western lore. Were they as much a construct of legend as a manifestation of actual frontier justice? The debate moves through time, as ephemeral as a dust devil rising from these ancient trails, blending reality with tall tales. The psychology of this ritual, a point of collision, where personal desperation and societal expectation intersected, bears contemplating. What drove two souls to risk everything in a sunlit standoff, watched intently by the world around them? For the bystanders, it was a spectacle. Yet for those involved, it was a blend of fate and fortitude, tinged with the tantalizing allure of legacy-making. Think of the Lawman standing firm amidst this spectacle, his badge a steady beacon in a sea of uncertainty. As much a part of the play as any actor under those skies, he was the embodiment of the law, his presence a reminder that eternity exists in every breath-literal representation of justice as unmovable as the earth beneath him. The sheriff was both stage manager and chief actor in a performance demanding his own legacy be weighed alongside the actions unfolding. Yet, consider the irony inherent in these duels that even in broad daylight, motivated by pride or provocation, much remained obscured in shadow the deepest truths of those who participated. Their motivations, riddled with personal vendettas, honor, fear, or an immutable destiny, flickered as enigmatically as the glimmers radiating off the midday sun. As you reflect on these seminal moments, they reveal the enigmatic dance of fortune and resolve, mirrored in a society grappling with its identity amid a landscape both free and formidable. Let this contemplation of legendary standoffs guide you gently toward rest. Visualize the sleepy towns resettling into the calm that follows emotional release, along streets where echoes of high noons trail off, merging indistinguishably into the tapestry of time. Allow sleep to envelop you, like the reassuring embrace of twilight, promising both safety and the whisper of worlds yet unexplored, where every breath mirrors history's layered exhalations, giving rhythm to the dreams you now journey toward. Under the soothing embrace of the night sky, your journey continues into the curious world of lawmen who wielded humor as deftly as their revolvers, a tool as vital in maintaining peace as any pistol on their hip. Imagine the dusty streets and the dry desert air alive with stories, interwoven with chuckles and wisecracks that echoed through saloon doors and over poker tables. Here, in the unpredictable dance between law and lawlessness, humor emerged as a lifeline, offering levity where tension threatened to unravel the fabric of fragile order. Lawmen learned quickly that the heart of law enforcement pulsed not only with the rhythm of authority but also with a jocular beata beat that relieved stress, dispelled fear, and occasionally diffused situations faster than a drawn gun. Picture the sheriff, his face weathered by the sun, eyes crinkled in a permanent squint from both laughter and sunlight. A seasoned peacemaker, his methods blended cunning with comedy, lifting a smile from tensions taut as a bowstring. Imagine him stepping into a heated dispute at the saloon, where raised voices quiver on the edge of escalating violence. Here, a well-timed quip could redirect anger into shared laughter, establishing a rapport as disarming as any authoritative decree. The strength of humor lay in its ability to humanize the law, creating connections between the sheriff and the townsfolk, thus nurturing respect beyond mere adherence to rules. It was an alchemy of sorts, turning potential conflict into community, weaving goodwill into the threads of daily life whereby, laughing together, foes remembered their shared humanity. Consider the notorious antics and dry wit of lawmen like Lot Smith, who, faced with a barrage of insults from an inebriated troublemaker, calmly remarked, "Well, if I had a gun that shot insults, you'd be the first I'd barrel." In the widespread mythos of the West, these liaisons, set against the backdrop of dusty streets and open landscapes, shimmer with an allure uniquely their own. Historians still argue the extent to which humor influenced these eras' outcomes, questioning whether it was a mere side note to the somber duties of Lawman or its very own quiet revolution. Did humor merely decorate the pragmatism inherent in the role, or did it fundamentally alter the interpersonal dynamics that defined justice in those early days? This question dances through history like a teasing twinkle in a child's eye, as elusive as it is enchanting. Be mindful of how humor served as an implicit negotiation tool during negotiations with outlaws or feuding factions. What could have been tense standoffs often eased into joint jokes and mutual stories under the sheriff's watchful eye. It was a reminder, perhaps, that even in the thick of law enforcement, the fragile nuances of lightheartedness could affirm deeper focuses of peace. This portrayal asks us to imagine scenarios where the unseen lasso of laughter fosters envelopment, entwining disparate souls into an unexpected brotherhood bound by shared amusement. Even where laws were as malleable as molten lead, humor rendered the fight against mischief redundant, offering instead the chance for reconciliation. As your mind ambles through this comical scape, think of how these tales resonate as a beacon of light within the shadows of history, illuminating the brighter facets of raw courage and collective resilience. Let these stories of humor stretch their warmth around you as the stars above blink with ageless mirth. Drift softly toward sleep, accompanying the echoes of bygone jesters wrapped in badges as they gradually fade into breathless stillness. Feel your own laughter unfurl, enriching dreams as they coalesce into gentle figure eights against the expansive night yawning widely to cradle you into rest, taking with it the verses of protection, camaraderie, and peace woven from ancient melodies. As the twilight deepens and the night sky weaves its luminous quilt overhead, let yourself wander into the heart of the legendary showdowns at Sundown confrontations, steeped in tension and testaments to courage where reputations were made, or shattered beneath the soft whisper of the evening breeze. Picture a sweeping western landscape with hues of orange and purple painting the horizon, setting the stage for narratives both grand and ephemeral. Here, amidst the lingering heat of the day and the cooling promise of dusk, you find yourself standing at the center of a dusty street where silhouettes gather, casting shadows that stretch and yawn across the ground. The showdowns were more than confrontations of skill. They embodied the crucible of character, challenging those involved to face the nuanced and fickle court of public opinion. The moments before such encounters carry a profound silency, a delicate breath held by the landscape itself, waiting for the unspooling drama to imprint itself on the annals of time. Imagine weary eyes watching from behind window panes and around corners, captivated by the unfolding Talia spectacle where the sun dipped low, seemingly bowing to the narrative wrought upon the earth. For the lawmen central to these stories, the act of stepping into that dust-blown street was both an exhibition of duty and destiny. As the evening winds unraveled melodies punctuated by chirps and distant hoofbeats, the purpose unfolded. Justice was not just about the law, but etched into the soil with every stride taken towards the unknown. The quintessential showdown became synonymous with more than skill. It redefined justice on emotional and ethical planes. The challenge lay not solely in aiming true, but in understanding, anticipating, and guarding one's moral compass amid palpable anticipation. Imagine a sheriff, his silhouette defined by the day's waning light, stepping forward with the calm resolve of one who knows that his actions echo not only in immediate consequence, but through the future generations who will judge the integrity of his heart and hand. He embodies both peace and potential violence, held tight by pride and patience. Debates quiver through time regarding the intricate motivations behind these duels. Were they more theater than necessity, or did they genuinely resolve animosities that flared beyond civil recourse? Hence, scholars indulge in animated discussions about honor, hubris, and necessity's role in an era as subjective as it was sensational. Reflect, too, on the idea that these confrontations draped the law in mythical robes, elevating it above mere words into an evolving narrative where every action produced echoes in riverbeds and whispers through the forest. As the onlookers waited breathlessly, the duel captured not only the imaginations of those present, but fed the legends shared by generations to come. Yet, beneath the drama lay an undeniable humanity, nerves stretched taut, caught between the pressure of expectation and the quietude of hope. Did peacekeepers encounter such moments as trials or triumphs to be navigated with heart in hand? Those few minutes asked eternal questions that defied neat categorizations, spinning tales attaching intangible lightness to evening's descent. In contemplating these showdowns at sundown, let their luminous legacy guide you through the intricacies of past decisions interwoven with pride and principle. As you stand beside these storied figures, permit yourself to glimpse the truths unspooled behind every bullet-laden smile, each anxious exhalation drawn in solitude, yet shared communally. With this meandering of the mind complete, let the soothing balm of these ancient echoes guide your retreat into the tender embrace of quietude. Bathed in the night's silvery illumination, let these stories transform into a melodic spool wrapping serenity around you. As you sink gently into slumber, feel the soul of the West enfold you secure, enduring, resilient beneath the shimmering gaze of dusk's grand witness. As the embrace of night wraps softly around you, drawing you deeper into history's quiet narratives, let us peer into the dim and often surprisingly vibrant world of the jailhouse. These humble structures, nestled within western towns, served as the critical junctions where law met the unvarnished truths of humanity, a setting where justice was as much a daily routine as it was a spectacle. Imagine a jailhouse standing resolute against the landscape, its wooden facade and barred windows casting angular shadows on the ground, framed by the vast, open sky. The building, a simple but essential fixture, housed tales as thick with intrigue as the dust suspended in the golden sunlight filtering through iron bars. Within, the law was not merely taught but tangibly practiced. Step inside and take a seat upon the plain wooden bench, letting your senses absorb the subtle complexities of this bastion of order. The air carries a mix of sweat, tobacco, and the faint musk of damp earth, a sensory tapestry deepened by time. From the cells, the low murmur of voices rises, weaving stories of repentance, defiance, or indifference, a symphony echoing through corridors and memories alike. It is here that day-to-day dramas unfolded, narratives painted with the brushstrokes of adversarial banter and grave solemnity. The sheriffs who patrolled these cells were more than just enforcers, they became stewards of this microcosm. Their duties ranged from pragmatic leadership to navigators of justice's murky waters, often punctuated by moments of levity. Picture an innocuous scene. The sheriff drinks his morning coffee while sharing a casual jest with a frequent occupant, a thief, whose ambitions ran only slightly ahead of his abilities. Sips turn into shared stories and shattered stereotypes, and unexpected kinship and barbed humor threading through the austere realities. Historians still debate how these small spaces, teeming with lives temporarily on hold, served as both corrective measures and marks of community design. Where, amid the protocols and procedures, did redemption and accountability meet on equal terms? Was the system more than punitive, striving also towards understanding? Reflect on the nuances of these interactions, a sheriff imparting wisdom in hushed tones, a guiding voice beneath the bar's shadow, a warden of empathy as much as of enforcement. Imagine the cell doors framing not only confinement but conversations that sometimes wandered past guilt towards transformation. Behind bars, jokes found surprising purchase, punctuating moments of seriousness with soft allowances for humor's tender balm. In this nexus of control and compassion, musings unspooled like painterly arcs across simple walls, each occupant adding their voices to the ongoing canvas of life's curious contradictions. Whether rendered in moments of silence or storytelling, these tales drew connections, mapping the shared experiences of lawman and lawbreaker alike. As you explore the complexities alive within these spaces, Let the echoes of laughter mingling with solemnity lull you into deeper reflection. Find humor nestled in solemnity's shadow, making clear path toward resilience a testament to humanity's shared resilience. Tonight, as dreams beckon, allow the essence of Jailhouse tales to enfold you like a comforting cocoon. Within this veiled interior, imagine a night-long vigil encircling you, bathed in the gentle reassurance of an unyielding guardian, ushering you toward a peaceful realm where justice and compassion coexist beneath the steadfast stars. Let the night's gentle narrative envelop you, with gradual calm as your companion. Revel in the quiet strength these stories offer, lulling you beyond the bookends of bars into boundless sleep, where understanding spans across imagined parlor rooms, carrying you softly toward the horizon's dawn. Under the quiet infinity of the night sky, let us delve into the intricate dance of skill and legend that define the sheriffs of the Wild West, a world where prowess with a pistol and perception could carve reputations as lasting as the rugged mountains framing the horizon. Imagine the tense silence of a face-off, or the gentle hum of whispered tales around communal fires, every story echoing the profound complexity of skill when twined with storytelling. Step into this world of subtle showmanship and tangible tension, where sheriffs balanced on the fulcrum of fate with finely honed instincts that propelled them beyond ordinary lawmen into figures of folklore. Within this vibrant tapestry, skill was both weapon and watchtower, a means to protect and preserve order across the sprawling expanse of the frontier. Imagine the sheriff, standing poised and ready, his steely gaze scanning the horizon, analyzing every nuanced movement, calculating angles with the grace of a mathematician's theorem and the heart of a gambler's hunch. Every calculated movement, every whisper of leather against wood, forms a quiet symphony of precision, a testament to a lifetime spent mastering the art of self-preservation and discipline. Consider the dexterity required in these encounters, where the margin between life and oblivion was gossamer thin. It was not just swift hands but shrewd minds that decided outcommese a romanticized dance of wit woven into the cold embrace of revolver steel, with each encounter narrated into tales that traverse time, gaining embellishments with each retelling. Historians still engage in spirited debates over whether the skill of these deputies was innate or a learned expertise shaped by the crucible of necessity. Was it sheer talent at play, or the byproduct of endless practice and the unrelenting demands of the day? This question lingers in the silent echoes of time, as hard to pin down as dust caught in the gusts of the desert wind. Reflect on how every swift draw and every paused hesitation became mythologized, chapters in legends that linger long after the dust settled. Imagine the embellished marvel recounted over tables in dimly lit saloons framed by golden lamplight, picturesque tales taking on lives of their own, spinning onwards through echoes of history. Yet not every conflict resulted in gunplay. In truth, the sagas that spoke loudest were those where perception guided peace, where the mind's agility outweighed the need for speed and marksmanship. Often, a situation diffused with words bore more impact than a bullet could, showcasing a skilled sheriff's true prowess, capturing the heart of the law and transmuting potential conflict into calm. These narratives became the bedrock of Western folklore, blending the art of charismatic diplomacy with documented anecdotes of audacious accuracy, each enriching the grand narrative of the lawman's journey. The tales transcended the limitations of time, becoming emblematic storytelling threads woven into the fabric of American mythology. As you contemplate these colorful escapades, let your mind wander through the melodious rhythm of stories, spun through quiet campfire gatherings, stitches of sound embroidering the silence. Allow these tales of masterful mechanics and mental muscle to cradle you into the hypnotic charm of history's soft sweep. Tonight, slip into sleep buoyed by hints of legend and lore, shepherded by the unconstrained imagination of storytellers past. Let the mastery of skill and perception merge in your dreams, forming illustrious tapestries of authenticity and invention beneath the steadfast heavens, guiding your nocturnal journey deep into the endless expanse of history's warm embrace. As the gentle night enfolds the world in its tender embrace, we turn to the age-old struggle of taming the untamable, the transformation of wild frontiers into bastions of order and civility. Picture the Wild West as a sprawling canvas unfurling beneath the panoramic sky, a place where lawmen with steely resolve set out to carve order from the raw chaos of untamed lands. Imagine the vast, ancient landscape stretching endlessly, mountains looming like sentinels over the sagebrush sea. On this sweeping stage, sheriffs played the dual role of protector and pioneer, wielding both the authority of their badge and the timeless tools of patience and resolve. Every day was an epic journey between the improbable and the possible, the unruly and the refined. Consider the sheriff's life as a perpetual traveler on the road to serenity, a road often twisting through unforeseen challenges and heartening triumphs. Equipped with an iron will and an innate understanding of human nature, these lawmen navigated the delicate intricacies of settlement life, overseeing the precarious dance between untamed wilderness and embryonic communities. Their charge was to translate blurred lines into clear, actionable justice. It wasn't merely fortifying towns and enforcing rules that defined their days. The true skill lay in caring for the spirit of community, coaxing from chaos a cohesive bond that linked settlers to one another and the soil they staked as their own. This enterprise was fueled by an enigmatic alchemy where right met resourcefulness and patience turned into peace. The morning sun rose on a stage where seemingly incompatible worlds of man and nature found equilibrium, echoing the sheriff's efforts to promote stability. Through their gentle yet firm hands, wilderness was not conquered. It was respected, transformed into something honorable and sustainable. The art of taming a wild expanse was as much about earning its allegiance as it was about imposing mastery over it. Take a moment to reflect on the historians who still deliberate over the costs and rewards of such unyielding efforts. Did the benefits outweigh the sacrifices in this dramatic script of expansion? Or did the endeavor echo beyond the grasp of its intentions, impacting both people and landscape in unforeseen ways? The questions remain, fading into the horizon yet still crackling with the vitality of unspent queries. Amidst these ponderous reflections, there grew humorous anecdotes that softened the relentless push toward order. The unlikely cohorts formed between lawmen and wildlife, the antics of tame mischief-makers as unofficial town mascots, or the sheriff, bashfully stumbling through new dances at the annual town social. Such stories, told and retold in gratitude, helped shape community identity and nurture enduring bonds. Thus persisted the essence of the sheriff's task. Embedded within their labors was the subconscious wisdom that even the taming of the wild demanded room for contradiction and laughter. Through tireless diligence, they unlocked the dance of civilization, where the wild and the tamed swayed in harmonious balance. As you explore these stories, let them serve as gentle reminders of the resilience and adaptability present in every heart striving for peace. Allow these narratives to sweep you into the comforting rhythms of life, continuously remade from the interplay of wildness and wonder. Tonight, as the lull of history's embrace invites you into rest, dwell in the solace of transformation, its arcs, forming both the swept plains of your dreams and the gentle curves of sleep. Allow the taming of the wild to guide you peacefully, where the promise of tomorrow coalesces as bright stars blazing across this timeless western horizon. As darkness settles like a velvet cloak embroidered with starlight, your journey takes you to the enduring legacy of the legends that continue to echo through the ever-changing alleys of history. In your mind's eye, you see the dusty trails and bustling towns of the Wild West, now bordered by the neon glow of modernity, a realm where tales of extraordinary sheriffs linger like ghosts upon the whispers of time. Here, as you walk beside the shadows of bygone lawmen, consider how their stories have seeped into the collective consciousness, crafting a tapestry that threads through the pages of history and the minds of storytellers alike. These men and women who once wore the sheriff's badge were far more than footnotes in a bygone era. They were molders of myth, shapers of cultural identity, who gave form to the cowboy archetype, a legacy ever surviving and ever adaptable. Imagine how these tales, now enriched with the patina of age, have grown beyond their origins, framed by the imagination of those who continuously relive them. In classrooms and campfires, through films and folklore, the legends of the Western sheriffs transcend the limits of time, becoming touchstones for exploring themes of justice, courage, and the timeless battle between right and wrong. In this museum of memory, the narratives of Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, and countless others linger in an ageless dance, echoing with the cadence of horses' hooves and harmonizing with the melancholic strum of a lonely guitar. Their actions, whether gallant and bold or shadowed and gray, form a wellspring of inspiration and introspection, urging each generation to weigh their deeds across the measure of history. Historians, still absorbed in deliberating over the veracity of these tales, find themselves intertwined with art and allegory, leaving unanswered questions hovering like morning mist upon endless plains. Was truth sacrificed at the altar of nostalgia, or have these legends purely endured because they encapsulate an ideal to which all aspire? Reflect on this interplay of myth and reality, how each softly spoken word, every embellished legend has played a role in shaping not just our understanding of the past, but our present sensibilities. These stories of valor and humor are not pure fiction. They serve as encoded messages, echoes of the past resounding within our shared narrative. Through the perpetuation of these tales, modern law continues its intricate dance with those long-ago lessons, molded by their enduring effects. Sheriffs of present-day contexts often find themselves embodying pieces of this historical heritage, where the resilience, courage, and creativity of their predecessors still resonate through time. This understanding binds yesterday to tomorrow, fusing tradition with innovation, suggesting how tales of yore nurture current conversations about justice's true nature, complex, inclusive, and boundlessly compassionate. As you lay back to rest under this starry tableau, allow yourself to drift peacefully into slumber, where the luminescent trail of history unfurls on the insides of your eyelids. Tonight, dream of those Western legends, untamed and eternal, spinning tales as timeless as the night sky cradling you. The cradle of myth rocks gently, and within its embrace, you find not only the sculpted shapes of legacy but the whispering promises of dawn's renewal. Surrender to sleep, where past, present, and future fold you seamlessly into their panoramic story. As the final chapter of night unfolds, settle into the quiet tranquility where the winds of history whisper their last tales under the serene watch of distant stars. The stories of Western sheriffs have traced a path of rugged journeys and humorous endeavors, transforming myths into mirrors reflecting our enduring quest for justice, courage, and companionship. In these reflections, you find footprints glimmering softly, marking paths tread by those resilient lawmen beneath an unyielding sky. Just as the land they protected was vast and varied, so too were the tales woven from their deeds' gauzy threads of grit and grace, stitching together a fabric that clothed the spirit of the frontier. Imagine for a moment the echoes of their tales fading gently, blending into the rustle of leaves and distant whispers of wind across the plains. As their stories dissolve into the atmosphere, the essence of these lawmen remains indelible, tucked away in the quiet places of hearts, ready to listen, to learn, and to laugh. From dawn to dusk and into the beckoning shadows of night, their endeavors remind us of the catharsis found within lives lived richly, however imperfectly. The sheriff's humor lingers, a reminder that laughter withstands time's erosive grasp, forging connections across the tapestry of generations. As night deepens, history's cadence softens, allowing you to walk serenely through its ebb and flow. You sense the harmonics of past and future melding, where each moment carries the wisdom of experience and the promise of renewal. Here, in this liminal space, dreams transform into gentle whispers of stories not yet told, waiting patiently to be birthed into being. In these hushed hours, breathe deeply of the restful calm encircling you, a serenity crafted by stories that have cradled countless souls before yours. As thoughts settle quietly along the horizon of dreams, know that you, too, are part of this vast continuum where legends and lulls walk alongside you into the mystery of the unknown. Allow yourself now to drift into slumber's deep embrace, carried on the comforting wings of history's fading lullaby. Feel the peace as it envelops you, a soft cocoon woven from stories of bravery, humor, and humanity's fraught yet fantastic journey through time. Rest easy, dear wanderer, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the ages and the soothing promise of dawn's first breath. Sweet dreams.